All right, guys. Welcome back. Everybody have a good lunch. All right, we are going to get started here. And we are really excited to kick off the second half of day one. You guys have a good morning? Let's hear it, yeah. You got your run out of the room ideas. Everyone's going to start their podcast, YouTube channel. Figure out the name over lunch. Yeah, awesome. Amazing. All right, guys. Well, hey, listen, we are bringing back a good friend of mine, and she has already had the amazing privilege to speak to you guys at last year's Nashville event and at some of our virtual events. And as I've gotten to know her, I've just been more impressed with what she's doing with her business. And not a lot of people out there who are connected with who they are. And I'm surprised you know as much as you do. At the young age, the oldest 30-year-old ever, that's what she says. And anyways, we've had some great conversations just around really figuring out what you're bringing to the table. And it's a really easy space to get caught up in all the hoopla and all the flash and all the red shiny, you know, what stuff people flash to get your attention. And our next speaker, Rachel, has really been able to figure out how to build a business just around your story. And she's going to come up here and tell you guys how you guys can do the same. She's on a podcast tour. She's speaking all over the place. And she's really just tapped into her past and her purpose. And she's been able to build a multi-million dollar business. And we want to give her a big, warm welcome to the stage. Rachel, come on up.
Test, test, test. All right. So is everybody in here a coach? Every single person a coach? Okay. I have to ask because I was actually at a mastermind last weekend and I asked that question and it was just like a few people, but right, know your audience. How many of you guys want to get on more stages, to speak more? Quite a few of you. How many of you guys want to podcast? How many of you guys have a podcast? Or are thinking of starting a podcast? Awesome. So this talk is going to be very valuable for all of you guys who raised your hand. You're all our coaches. But I love coming to mastermind events really because of two main reasons. One is the alignments that are created, right? I think it's truly incredible what can happen when you put a bunch of masterminds all together in a room, in this incubator of greatness that Vince has created. And I'm up here speaking to all of you guys today, not because Vince found me on social media and was like, hey, this girl would be awesome at speaking. She should come here. She has a great brand and following. No, I'm here speaking because of the alignments that I've created. So something my pastor, Keith Kraft, actually says quite a bit is sometimes your alignments create your next assignments. And I believe when you get around the right people, in the right place, in the right time, incredible things can happen. So I hope everybody has a chance today to be able to connect and network with everybody because I am literally up here today because of alignments and meeting people in rooms just like these. And then two is really getting to hear everybody's story because everybody's story is evidence for what's possible. How many of you guys have heard someone's story before and thought, man, if they can do it, I can do it too? Just about everybody in here. How many of you guys heard Vince's story and everything that he's been able to build and thought, man, if Vince can do all of that he's been able to build, how many millions now a year do you guys do? Like insane, but like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? But how many of you guys have seen his success or other people up here, even in this room, and thought, man, if they can do it, I can do it too. Right? You see, a story is powerful. A story says you have been where I am at, and you came out on the other side. It creates trust. It creates credibility. And this is exactly what your clients look to you for, right? They look to you for evidence for what's possible for them. So today I want to talk to you guys all about how you can use your story to build a $1 million mission and brand through something I call the evolution structure, which I have created on my own entrepreneurial journey. I call it the conscious entrepreneurial journey, which I'll dive into here in a little bit. How I've been able to create one of the fastest growing online functional medicine nutrition practices purely out of my own story of almost having my entire large intestine removed. How I literally went from lying in bed saying, this isn't my life, this isn't real, to this is my life, this is real. And how I went from making less than $6,000 a month as a one-woman show to scaling my business to multiple millions a year. Purely organic, no paid ads, just by my story. And as I'm talking to all of you guys today, and I share with you my story, I want you to pay very close attention to how I'm sharing my story. Because I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to tell you, okay? I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to tell you. Because before I tell you the how, it's really important for you guys to know my why. You can see all of these accolades and all of these accomplishments here, but I can still hear the screeches of my dad's busted up Toyota Camry as it's rolling up to the 7th grade. And I'm begging him to park a block away from school so I could walk. I didn't want to be made fun of anymore. Our home was being foreclosed on. I had a face full of acne and my front 2 teeth crossed. And every time I'd smile, my best friend Sarah would say, when are you getting braces? And the smile would immediately leave my face. I grew up as a very insecure, unconfident little girl. I was afraid to use my voice. I created this meaning that it wasn't safe to speak, that what I had to say didn't matter. And part of this was a byproduct because I really didn't have parents much growing up. My mom was physically absent for most of my upbringing, partying, drinking, doing drugs, bringing home various men who she'd sleep with. And then my dad was physically absent and emotionally absent as a byproduct of my mom because we all lived together in the same home. It was really fucked up. So I never really had someone to speak good into me. And I created this meaning very subconsciously that I didn't matter. I was that girl who really wouldn't speak up at all. Boys would actually ask me out on dates after my acne cleared up and I got my braces off. I was cute kind of then. And I'd go out with them, but eventually they'd break up with me because I really wouldn't speak to them. I'd give them like one-word answers back. They'd be like, how you doing? Good. Great. This girl's really boring. But you see, despite being broken, blemished, and afraid to use my voice, I had this inner knowing. I had this inner knowing that I was going to create something with my life. It was small, it was subtle. You guys know what I'm talking about, that inner knowing? Like this small inner knowing that you're supposed to do something with your life. Sometimes it's not big, sometimes it's really little. But I had that, despite my upbringing. And I made just good enough grades to get into a college like Baylor University, which was a $50,000 university, which I got into massive student loan debt attending, but growing up so broke as I was as a kid, I literally just wanted to go the opposite direction of whatever I was raised in. I always say instead of PTSD, I had PTG. So I tried to go the complete opposite direction to my family, but it was while I was at Baylor, I picked up weightlifting. And this is where the fitness freak most people see today and what grew my social media following really came to life. There was something about pushing my body to the extreme and seeing what I was capable of. I loved it. It was a way for me to showcase my mindset. And although I couldn't control what was happening around me, I could take all the pain that I felt and I could turn it into something beautiful. It gave me a sense of worth for the first time in my life, coming from fitness. And I know for a lot of you guys, this is where your fitness journey started, right? You started your fitness journey coming from a place of maybe not feeling good about yourself, feeling insecure, unconfident. Maybe you're depressed. How many of you guys can relate to that? Beginning your fitness journey coming from that place. And I feel like we step into fitness and it gives this new sense of confidence. Better, as I know, you talked about what got you started into fitness, and it was asking a girl out right at prom. And I think sometimes we start from this place of lack, right? When we get started in our fitness journey, but that can't be what keeps us going. And even though I was operating from this place, I fell in love with what it did for me. I fell in love with this new confidence, the sense of self I had. My body changed. I started to post on Instagram, everything I was passionate about, recipes, before and after photos, workout videos, #booty pics. I grew my social media to about 100,000 followers because of my passion for fitness, and I started to compete in bodybuilding. I was the cover of Men's Health, bodybuilding.com, Tran magazine, and I maintained a 10% body fat for 2 years, competing at the national level, and I thought that all I wanted to do was to go pro at that point in my life. And as I got to that level, though, and I put everything into fitness, and my worth really coming from my body, though, I started to get really sick. And I started to battle severe gastrointestinal issues, because I believe anytime we put our worth in something outside of us, it crumbles. My hair started to fall out, my skin was a wreck. I couldn't eat anything without being in massive pain, literally looking 6 months pregnant because of how bloated I was every single day. So I did what most people would do. I went to the doctor. And they did every scan under the sun, colonoscopy, endoscopy, CT scan, only to slap a label on me of IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. I was put on probably every medication under the sun, birth control for my hormones, an antidepressant, thyroid medication, and I continued to get worse and worse over that next year, where eventually I was even sent to a colorectal surgeon, who then told me my only solution was to remove my entire large intestine at this point because of how dysfunctional my gut had become. And this was my rock bottom. I was sitting there in the doctor's office and I wanted to give up. I just wanted to get on with my life at that point. I just was like, cut it out. Take my fucking large intestine out. I don't want to be here anymore. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to not want to be where you're currently at. I know what it's like to be somewhere where you're so discouraged in your life. I know what it's like, and I can speak to that in people. I know what it's like to want to give up. But I made a decision in that moment that I was going to heal. And I left, and I literally became obsessed with learning everything that I could about the gut and the gut microbiome and how these little microbes in our gut control everything, from our hormones, our thyroid, our adrenals, to our brain. I became certified in functional medicine. I did various elimination diets, incorporated supplements to regenerate my gut lining. I started to do the deep, deep, deep inner work on myself, the way in which I was relating to myself, the views that I had of myself. And eventually, I could go a few days, a few weeks without being in pain with a lot of my gut issues. And eventually, my body did heal. And I could avoid having my entire large intestine removed. And in my story, it was then that I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to help other people heal. I wanted to help them take a root cause approach. I wanted to help other people realize that their worth did not come from anything outside of them. And Rachel Shear Nutrition was born, my practice. And today we have now served over 3,000 people in taking a root cause and gut-centric approach to healing. All because of my story. So I want to pause here for a moment and I want to ask all of you, what is your story? What is your why? Why should I listen to you? Because the truth is, I don't care what you do until I know why you do it. You get that? I need to know your why. Your clients need to know your why. And so many of you have this incredible story. You have this incredible story, but you're afraid to share it. You're afraid of what other people will think of you. You're afraid that it won't make you credible, right? I've been like that myself. I've been afraid that it won't make me credible to talk about all of these things that I've walked through, to talk about my insecurities, to talk about how speaking used to be a struggle for me, to talk about my health issues and being at rock bottom and wanting to give up. And a lot of you guys have these stories, but you're afraid to share it. But hear me when I say this, your perfection does not inspire me. Your perseverance does. Your perfection does not inspire me. Your perseverance does. The reason why I have been able to grow Rachel's Sheer Nutrition to a multi-million-dollar business is not because of anything other than my story. I give something to others to connect to. I'm able to connect with where they've been. I can speak to that in people, right? And a lot of you guys post awesome content. Fitness education, nutrition tips, all of that. I love that. But you have to be able to tap into their heart space to be able to tap into their head space. Do you get that? You have to be able to tap into their heart space to be able to tap into their head space. The heart space is where it says, she gets it. He gets it. He has been where I'm at, and he's came out on the other side. He gets it. And the head space is where people decide that they trust you, that they want to work with you. That's what makes you credible, but you have to be able to tap into their heart space to be able to tap into their head space. And when sharing your story, you need these two things. I want everybody to write these down. Audacity and conviction. Audacity and conviction. Audacity is your willingness to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to walk into every conversation with nothing to hide and nothing to prove. Nothing to hide and nothing to prove. Are you willing to put it all out there? Are you willing to let me see a part of you that most people don't see? And I'm not talking about the inappropriate parts of you. I'm talking about the parts that require this extra level from you. Do you get that? It requires more from you. You know how fucking uncomfortable it is to get up here and to share this level of vulnerability with people? Like, it's really scary to get up here and do it. I still get nervous. I still do. But I make myself do it because I know that it is this version of me. It is this raw, unedited, imperfect version of me that is actually changing the world, right? I used to try to be perfect all the time. I used to try to pretend like I had everything figured out in my life. I never showed the raw, the imperfect parts of me. But it took me a long time to realize that it was this authentic and this raw part of me that was talking about these kind of things that was really changing the world. It was the audacious part of me. Conviction is your willingness to bet on yourself because of the mission that you believe in. My very first speaking engagement I ever did was to 20 people in a box gym. And I was terrified of this. I had like a piece of paper and it was like shaking in front of me. And I'm by no means still the best speaker ever. But I did it, and I shared my story. And I videoed a piece of that on my phone. It was put up on Instagram. And my friend, Ryan Stuman, I don't know if any of you guys know him, hardcore closer, happened to see my story of me talking. And he reaches out to me and he's like, Rachel, I'm looking for another female speaker to come talk at my $1 million mastermind. I was like, sure, why not? I'm a speaker. No. I had barely ever spoken a day in my life, but I said yes because my conviction outweighed my convenience. And leading up to that speaking event was the scariest thing that I had ever done. I practically had a panic attack. I was actually practicing in front of my mom. She was like my audience. And then I had projected up on my TV, my PowerPoint here. And I would get through like the first sentence of my presentation. And my mom was like, stop right there. And I'm like, what, Mom? What? She's like, you need a podium. I'm like, what do you mean I need a podium? She's like, you need a podium. Everybody's going to have a podium. You need a podium. I was like, I don't need a podium, Mom. And I did not get through that talk at all with her because I was so triggered. And she was like, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good, this talk. But I gave that talk. It was a 30-minute talk to 2,000 people. It was my second talk that I ever did. And at the end, I actually got a standing ovation. It was very imperfect, still nonetheless, but I shared my story. And since then, I've gotten opportunities to speak more and more. But I took imperfect action because my conviction outweighed my convenience. You see, your conviction has to outweigh your convenience in business. And as I shared my story with all of you guys, I didn't just share my story just to share it with all of you guys. I wanted to bring you guys through something actually very specific. It's called the dip theory. Has anybody heard of that before? Everybody on a piece of paper, draw a big V for me. Draw a big V on a piece of paper. V as in Victor. Draw a big V. This is what I took you guys all through in my talk. In the upper left-hand corner, I want you to write my accomplishments. What you see today. And then at the bottom of the V, I want you to write my lowest of lows. My rock bottom. What I've had to overcome. And then in the upper right-hand corner of the V, I want you to write who I am now today because of that. What I created from this. The lessons I've learned. This is called the dip theory. This is actually what I took you guys all through in my talk. You heard a lot of my accomplishments at the beginning. I brought you to the lowest of low moments where I was being told I needed to have my large intestine removed. And then I brought you back to the top of what I created. My business, Rachel's Your Nutrition, the people I've been able to impact because of that. This is super simple, very powerful. Use this in every talk, podcast, use this on your social media, and I'll show you here in a minute how you can use this on your social media. And I'll give you an example of the two. Let's say I'm on a podcast, and someone says, Rachel, tell me how important gut health is. Well, I could say, well, Jean, gut health is important because it connects your hormones to your thyroid, to your adrenals, to your brain. Or, if I'm using the dip theory, it would sound like this. Well, Jean, in order for you to know how important gut health is, you need to know what it did for my life. When my hair was falling out, when my skin was a wreck, when I couldn't eat anything without being in massive pain, and I was put on every medication under the sun, birth control, antidepressants, laxatives so I could go to the restroom, and even told that I needed to have my large intestine removed. But, see that going up now? By healing my gut, everything started to improve. I felt like I got my life back. I could get out of bed without feeling exhausted. My skin cleared up. I felt like myself again. You see the difference between the two, right? That is the power of the dip theory, right? That's the difference between showing somebody and telling somebody, right? It's very easy to be online and to tell somebody why they should work with you. It's very easy to be online and tell somebody about why they're struggling to lose weight. It's very easy to get online and tell somebody how you can help them build muscle. Show me. Take me through the process. How did you do this for yourself? How did you do this for other people? Right? Share the story. It's very, very powerful. And you can also use this on your social media. How many of you guys have heard of a viral transformational post before? Nobody? Yes. You guys are just quiet. So this is the most powerful weapon you can use to drive hundreds, thousands of eyeballs to your page and also talk a lot about your story, right? These are always the pieces of content that goes viral. And this is a great way to also, is this moving? It's not moving. There it goes. To also showcase your story, right? So a couple of examples, and you guys can take this and start talking about your story on your social media by even utilizing this. Like, it's very easy to see all of those like before and after photos we always see online. You know, I share where I was into competing and, you know, I was very, very skinny, and I actually started to focus more on my mental health and my physical health and that transformation. And I talk about that for myself. And I have a couple other examples here. I'm not sure if I can click on them. Yeah. I've also done this through business content as well too. So if you swipe on this photo, I actually am sharing a story of my journey of becoming an entrepreneur. 2015, working as a clinical dietitian, making $20 an hour, giving nutrition advice to people who didn't want it. Next one. 2015, battling severe gut issues and almost having my large intestine removed. 2017, creating Rachel Shear Nutrition as a one-woman show. Hiring a business coach for $50,000 in the midst of a pandemic, which I'll talk about that in a minute. And then growing a massive brand and serving over 3,000 people with a team behind me, speaking on healing and entrepreneurship. So I was able to share my story just through my content. I also added a call to action at the end. We can click on the next one too. Oh, this is the one I showed you all. Yeah. There's my butt. Okay, let's go back. Thank you, guys. So for your viral transformational post, you want to focus on one main transformation. You want to add some kind of a benefit-driven caption. Yeah, if you want to take a photo of this, you can. For example, how healing my gut got me into the best health of my life. Maybe to business, this could be how I 30x'd my business in 3 years from making less than $70,000 a year to over $2 million a year. But the goal is you want to keep the end result aligned with what your audience wants to achieve. right? Because you're speaking to where you were to them in that place. This clicker doesn't like me. And then you want to add, no, I think I skipped too far. Add clear social proof if possible. If you don't have a before and after photo, you can always just showcase a photo of you. For example, I've done photos of me speaking on stage, sharing my story and my evolution of speaking, how I used to be basically like mute as a kid, could barely speak, could barely use my voice, to now where I'm speaking and I'm doing podcasting, I'm doing all of these things, and I can share my story in the caption part of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a before and after photo. There's so many different ways you can do this. I know it's very typical to just see the fitness before and after photos, but you can showcase mindset transformations, business transformations. You can showcase, your, like I said, speaking transformation, whatever you want to showcase in the story you want to tell. The before you really want to make it more about the hell, right? So you're going to speak to that hell. This is where I was at a very low point in my life. My worth was in my body. I was counting every single calorie that I was eating. Here I put at the caption, photo on the left, hyper-focused on how I looked, being lean, counting macros, and self-discipline coming from a place of unworthiness. And then you'll have the after, where is more of the heaven, the aspirational version of you. And you want to really focus on how this made you feel. So it's really being able to tap into the emotion side, right? So I had as the caption here, photo on the right, focused on loving my body and choosing to do the things that make me feel good physically and mentally. Not perfect by any means, but this woman has so much more grace, kindness, and understanding for herself, and because of that, others. So after you've painted a picture of the hell and then the heaven, where they're trying to get to, you'll then want to share 1 or 3 key lessons that you've learned as a byproduct of this. So here I put, but it took losing my health and almost having my large intestine removed due to my gut issues that I created Rachel Shear Nutrition, along with my degree in Baylor Nutrition and Dietetics, and then becoming a certified in functional medicine. I created a holistic approach that uses comprehensive lab testing, root cause analysis, custom nutrition, and coaching and accountability. I'm so grateful I now get to use my own healing journey to help others do the same. So I'm adding a little bit more of that credibility piece there as well. And then some kind of a call to action at the end, right? So what should they do now? So you've shared with them the hell, you've shared with them the heaven, you've shared with them the lessons you've learned, what you created from this, so very similar to that dip theory. And what should they do now? So heart space and then head space, right? Heart space and then head space. And here I'll always have a call to action at the end. Click the link in my bio. DM me the word root cause to learn more. These are just some of the different call to actions that I use. I'm sure Vince has talked about this, but I always have a call to action in my bio as well too. So book your free root cause analysis, DM me root cause. I've kind of gone back and forth with either of those, but always having some kind of a call to action. And a couple other examples, if you don't mind clicking on these as well. I'll just show you. Here's a video that I did. So it's more about my body transformation after healing my gut. So I was able to showcase the pain. I showcased acne, I showcased the emotional side, skin rashes, after, the face of happiness, the body. So there's a lot of fun ways that you can do this. And then the last one. This is more so me just speaking on stage, actually at Vince's last 7-figure mastermind, sharing my story, and then talking more about my story in the caption as well too. So just to give you guys a couple other different examples about how you can share your story on social media. Okay. You can also do a story highlight. Last one, if you could click on that. So I created a little bubble on my social media platform where I'm actually walking people through my story. It's like a saved bubble at the top of my Instagram. I just have text, literally sharing my story there. If you just want to click through that, you can go through kind of fast if you want. I'm talking about the pain, what I created, talking about gut health, how it's important. And then later on, I add some kind of a call to action, and then I add in testimonials. So something super simple to do. Share your story, let people know who you are, how they can connect with you. Yeah, you can exit that one. Thank you. If you guys want to dive in a little bit more in depth about how you can utilize your story more on social media, do the viral transformational post, you can just take a quick photo of this. I put together a guide for everybody if you want to get it. It's just more so like a how-to to do the viral transformational post, the call to actions, all of that. Cool. Everybody got it? Moving on. Cool. I'll leave that up. So there's a lot of different ways you can share your story and start speaking about that more and more. Now, I was a one-woman show for quite some time in my business, right up until COVID actually happened. And everything shut down. And the way my brain works is I'm like, what a great time to start a podcast. So I started a podcast, and I invited Bedros actually to come on my podcast because we were just friends, and I met him actually at another mastermind event as well too. So we already had some of that alignment there. Bedros comes on my podcast and then refers one of his previous coaching clients, Tony Steffen, to come on my podcast because he was a registered dietitian. And Tony comes on my podcast and then shares his story. He shares his story of how he went from making $50,000 a year as a registered dietitian to becoming a millionaire, making $1 million by the age of 30. And I remember hearing Tony's story and thinking, man, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. So I get off that podcast with Tony and I text Bedros. And I'm like, Bedros, I want to work with you. We hop on a call 30 minutes later, and Bedros proceeds to tell me all of the men that he's helped become a millionaire by the age of 30. There's 3 of them. Jason Phillips, Tony Steffen, Vince Del Monte. There's 3 of them. Huh?
I said Jason Capital.
Jason Capital. Jason Capital. Maybe there's 4. Maybe it wasn't Jason Phillips. Jason Capital. Yeah, I'd have 3 guys. I know there was 3 though. And I listened to Bedros share all of this, and I don't know what came over me in that moment, but I said to Bedros, I go, how old were they? He's like, well, I helped him by age 29, him by age 30. And I was like, Bedros, I'm gonna beat all those guys. And it wasn't coming from a place of like actually wanting to like beat them. It was coming from a place of like, I want to bet on myself. I believe that I can be one of those people because of their story, right? And then Bedros proceeds to tell me that it's $50,000 to work with him. Now we're in the middle of a pandemic. Everything had shut down. I was making $6,000 a month. I also had a ton of student loan debt because I decided to go to Baylor University, like a $50,000 a year college. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. So I said, Bedros, can you do a payment plan? He goes, yeah, we can do a payment plan. We'll split it into 2 payments, $25,000 down now and $25,000 down 30 days from now. Okay. Click. my heart fell into my butt in that moment. I had no idea how I was going to get the other $25,000. But I wired him over the first $25,000, every last penny that I had in my bank account, because I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. I had that inner knowing again. And I believe when you declare what it is that you want with the uttermost certainty and that knowing, God makes a way. So I took out a loan, hashtag COVID Relief Fund, that I got for exactly $25,000. And I wired over the rest to Bedros. And today, Rachel Shear Nutrition did not just do $1 million by the time I was 30. We did multiple millions, fully organic, no paid ads, just by sharing my story. And I just turned 30 in February. The best thing you can have as an entrepreneur is limited resources, because it forces you to get uncomfortable. It forces you to answer the question, how bad do you want it, right? How bad do you want it? And it's not about the money, because if it's about the money, when the going gets tough, I promise you this, you will quit every single time. You will quit every single time. It's about the person that you're becoming in the process. And if you've ever met somebody wealthy, at some point in time, their family was not. And then the one came along. The one to change their family trajectory forever. And in my family, I'm the one. On my very first coaching call with Bedros asked me, Rachel, what is the vision that you have for your business? He's like, we could set you up and trainerize, do some fitness and nutrition in there. I was like, no, Bedros. I want to speak on a podcast. I want to change millions of people's lives. He's like, okay. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to hire up some coaches. You're going to train them to do exactly what you do. You're going to clone yourself. So that's what I did. So I want to pause here for a moment, and I want to ask all of you, what is the vision you have for your life? And I say life intentionally instead of business, because it's very easy to have a grandiose vision for a business that doesn't actually align with the life that we want. And then we wonder why we're constantly running into burnout, exhaustion, because our vision we have for our business is just make as much money as possible. That's what we're chasing after. We're operating from a place of lack. We're operating from a place of, I will be more worthy once I make X amount of money, right? So what is the vision you have for your life? It's very different. And based off of the vision that you have for your life, you can get clear on what the vision is then for your business. But it has to align with that. And a lot of people don't actually take the time to figure out what the vision is that they have for their life. We just have that approach, just make as much money as possible, just work harder, and we suffer along the way. And then we get to the point where relationships are suffering. Our health is suffering. But hey, I worked hard. I was hustling. I made a lot of money. That's not what it's about, right? So what is the vision you have for your life? And a great way to figure this out is to actually write out, what does your perfect day look like? If you've never done that before, write out, what does your perfect day look like? Write out, what are you doing in the morning? How are you spending your afternoons? How are you spending your evening time? That'll give you a clear answer of the life that you want for yourself. What does your perfect day look like? Because most of us, when we have this big vision for a business and we really get down to it, we're like, shoot, I don't know if I want this. Like, I don't like all of this that I'm doing. It's taking away from me mentally and physically, my health. So what does your perfect day look like? What is the vision you have for your life? And then from that place, we can take aligned action to create the business that we want. I had a big vision for myself. I wanted to change the lives of millions of people. I wanted to speak, I wanted to podcast. So my business structure has been set up, high ticket to work with me, moderate ticket to work with my coaches. But I also enjoy having a team. I enjoy being a CEO of my company. You may not. You may not want to have a large team, even though that may be the approach that we all hear, like this is what you're supposed to do. That may not be what you want. There's a lot of different options out there. You can do group coaching, high ticket to work with you, still bring on an assistant and other people, but it doesn't necessarily mean you need to manage 20, 30 people to create the life and the business you want for yourself. So get clear on the vision that you want for your life. Get clear from there what the vision is that you want for your business, and then take aligned action from there. Now, I've started to do business coaching actually a little bit this year, and it wasn't something that I sought after. It was something that kind of came to me because I had a client. Her name is Claude. She came to me, she did all of my testing. She had an autoimmune condition. She could not lose weight for the life of her. I helped her heal from her Hashimoto's. She lost like 20 pounds. And she fell in love with what it did for her. She's like, I want to help other people do this too. I want to help other people do this too because what it did for me. So she hired me to give her a little RSN certification in nutrition, a little bit about macros, weight loss, hormonal balance, because she was really passionate about hormones. And then from there, she asked me to hire her for business coaching. She paid me $30,000 for a year to hire her for business coaching, where now she's making over $100,000 a month because of her own healing journey, and because she took massive action and aligned action to go along with that. And I share all of this with you, one, because of her journey and her story, but also because another question I get asked quite a bit in business coaching is, when is the right time to hire? And the time to hire is when it's actually costing you more money to do the work yourself. There was a time in my business where it was costing me money to have to do all of the busy work. So I hired an assistant. I trained her to do a lot of the admin, the busy work, the onboarding. But eventually we outgrew her, and I brought on a director of operations, Michael, who's still with me today. And then there was another time in my business where it was costing me money to have to get on all of the sales calls. So I hired on a sales team. I trained them up with exactly what I was doing, so I could continue to carry out my vision, speak, podcast, be the face of my brand, working with a few select clients, running my business. And then even this last year, there became a point where it was costing me money to have to be in my DMs. So I hired on a couple of DM setters. And each DM setter actually makes me $50,000 a month, and I'll tell you how. Because before, when it was just me in my DMs, because you have to imagine, I'm a fully organic business, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are too, right? You get a lot of your clients coming into your direct messages who are interested, who want to learn more about you, and I couldn't reach back out to all of these people. So by bringing in 2 DM setters, they not only do inbound messages, but they also do outbound messages. So they're reaching out to people who like my content, who are new followers. They're creating conversations with them. They're adding value. They're directing people to my podcast. They're getting to know their goals. And then if it makes sense, they're directing them to book a call with my sales team. My sales team closes them, hands them over to Michael, my director of operations, where Michael does all of their onboarding, and then places them with one of my coaches. And this is how this has become a very well-working machine. This is what I call my organic war machine, right? So we want to hire when it's costing us more money to do the work ourselves, but also if it's aligned with the vision that we have for our business and for our life. Is this helpful for everybody? Yes. Yeah. Now, one of the hardest things that I've had to learn as an entrepreneur that has grown as fast as I have grown, both personally and professionally, has been losing people, I will say. The coaches that I started with aren't the same coaches that I have now today. The assistant that I started with, I told you all about, is not the same assistant that I have now. It's actually Michael, my director of operations. And this was something that I really struggled with early on in my business. Truly, it was. And every time I brought somebody on, I've said to them, the version of you who is awesome and a rock star won't be good enough for the business 6 months from now, a year from now. So you're going to be forced, or you're going to be required to have to grow personally, professionally. And a lot of people nod their head. They're like, yeah, I have a growth mindset. I want to grow. And that means like they want to grow. But when it really comes down to it, they don't have a growth mindset, because a growth mindset is actually constantly questioning our thoughts, right? Our mindset is whatever our mind sets in. It's what our mind sets in. So when we have a growth mindset, we're actually having to challenge our current ways of thinking, right? We have to challenge that, and that's a really hard thing to do. And I've had to learn, and you'll have to learn this too, but most people won't want to grow the way you want to grow. Most people won't want to grow the way you want to grow. So you have to be okay with letting people go. I don't have a large group of friends. I have a very small group of friends who are like my ride or dies. Actually, my best friend, Michelle, we laugh all the time because I'm very introverted at my core, except when it comes to things I'm passionate about. And she's very extroverted. And we always laugh because we're like, how do introverts make friends? We're like, they don't. And extrovert finds them and acquires them. It's like, you're mine. She's awesome. She's constantly pursued me. But I don't have a lot of friends because I've chosen to not live a normal life. So I can't have normal friends. And that's a tough one to swallow. And I'm not saying that like you need to exit people out of your life, right? We want to always add value to everybody, right? It's always like bringing ourselves into every conversation, adding value to everybody. But I'm talking about the people who are closest to you in your life. And one of the hardest lessons you'll have to learn in really compounding on your business is knowing who the who's are in your life. And this is not just about creating alignments with people who can help you get ahead. That's not what I'm talking about here. And if that's what you try to do, I promise you this, it will not work out for you, because that's a lack mentality. That's a take-type mentality, right? This is about getting around people who value what you value. This is about getting around people who reflect back to you the greatness that's already inside of you. And a couple of things that have really helped me on compounding on my growth in my business has been, one, paying attention to my energy when I'm around certain people. Do I feel better about myself or do I feel worse? Right? You guys know what I'm talking about. There are certain people you get around and you feel worse about yourself after. You leave feeling energy drained, right? You feel worse about yourself after. And there are certain people that you get around and you feel inspired. You leave and you're like, that gave me energy. I feel awesome. Oh my gosh, I feel so inspired in my life. So pay attention to your energy when you're around certain people. And this actually has nothing to do with how much money they make, their notoriety. I have met a lot of people who make a lot of money, who have a lot of notoriety, and I find them very uninspiring people. they leave me feeling uninspired. Because I believe inspiration is living in spirit. It's living in alignment with yourself. Definitely can be somebody who has notoriety, but they definitely don't go hand in hand. But it's about getting around people who reflect back to you that greatness that's already inside of you, who inspire that in you. And two other things that have really helped me on the business side has been podcasting and masterminds. And I started my podcast in the middle of a pandemic, not necessarily because I wanted to grow this huge podcast. I started my podcast as a way to connect with other people, right? How many of you guys know Andy Frisella? Pretty much everyone in here, First Form. I'm a First Form athlete, but there's no way that I could ever reach out to Andy and be like, hey, Andy, you want to get coffee? And can I pick your brain? Like, that would never happen. But if I'm like, hey, Andy, do you want to come on my podcast and talk about Western medicine and your experience coming off of antidepressants? He was like, yeah, sure, I would love to. So a podcast has been an incredible avenue to be able to connect with people that I would never have otherwise been able to connect to. Now, I'm not a podcast expert. Bedros, talk to Bedros. Bedros is awesome at podcasts. Gabrielle, in the back, she's awesome at podcasting. My approach is just start it, just launch it. I'm like imperfect action and everything that I do, just like start it. And it's been awesome for me. And I've been able to connect with so many people that I never would have. Gabrielle, I met her through my podcast. She came on my show. We connected. Now we're like best friends. So you can meet so many people. And then mastermind events, right? I mean, obviously you guys are all here at a mastermind event. But masterminds are a great way to get around people who value what you value, right? And sometimes you need to pay to get in the right rooms. I know that we don't always want to hear that, but the rooms you're in matter, and they determine the next rooms you will be in. And I don't mean to offend anybody when I say this, but if you're not willing to invest $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 into yourself and into your business, you do not deserve the $100,000 a month life. You don't. This is the law of reciprocity. You get out of it what you put in. When you take massive action and the uttermost knowing into what it is that you want, and you give more than you take, you get that back in return. The reason why I have grown my business to a multi-million-dollar business is because I put literally everything on the line to create that, right? So you have to be willing to invest in if you want to get out. Same thing goes with the relationships. You have to be willing to give, and instead of having the mentality of, what can they do for me? How can they help me? How about this? What can you do for other people? How can you help other people? It's a very different mindset, and I know I'm talking a lot about money in this conversation that I get to have with all of you guys today, but everything I'm talking about, this is not about wealth. Most entrepreneurs are after wealth. Wealth is financial success. I'm talking about abundance. Abundance is a complete 180. Abundance is health. Your health is the foundation for everything. Health is potential, right? So if you're ever at a point in your business where your health is suffering, you're not living in abundance. Abundance is relationships. It's about getting around people who reflect back to you the greatness that's already inside of you. Abundance is your relationship to self. It's knowing yourself. It's doing that deep, deep, deep inner work on yourself. It's taking your internal purpose and turning that into your external purpose. And abundance is your connection to God. It's living a life of inspiration, in spirit, in all that you do. And this is what I believe all conscious entrepreneurs are on. We're after creating an abundant life, not just wealth, not just monetary success, where everything else is sacrificed in the process. And for conscious entrepreneurs, I believe it's everything I've talked about today. It's clarity. It's taking your internal purpose and turning it into your external purpose. That's that deep, deep, deep inner work that you get to do on yourself. That is your story. It's the creation part. Knowing what the vision is that you have for your life, for your business. Taking aligned action to create that. And it's compounding on this by knowing who the who's are in your life. It's about getting around people who reflect back to you the greatness that's already inside of you. And as I bring my talk here slowly to a close, and I've gotten you guys a little bit in your headspace today, I'd like to get you all in your heart space. And I'd actually like to share with you a little meditation that I've done over this last year to help me tap into abundance. I'm sitting in my dream car, my G-Wagon, which I got a couple of years ago. It was like my first gift to myself when I started to make any kind of money. And there's a younger version of me sitting in the passenger seat. She's 8. She looks around, kind of confused, looks up at me and says, "This is my car?" "Yeah, this is your car." "What? What do I do for work?" "Well, you've taken the things that you've walked through, you healed from them, and now you help other people do the same. You're a speaker, you're a coach." "What? No way. I can barely use my voice." "I know. But you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I'm you, and you are me." Abundance is being able to see the good that's already in your life. It's acting as if, and it's knowing that it's already inside of you. I want you guys all to play with me for a minute. I want everybody to close their eyes. We're going to talk to our inner child. You're sitting in your dream car. If you don't have one, make one up, pick one right now. But you're sitting in your dream car. And there's a younger version of you sitting in the passenger seat. Maybe she's 8. Maybe he's 5. Maybe she's 15. Whatever age resonates with you the most. He looks around, she looks around, kind of confused. Looks up at you and says, "This is my car?" You chuckle. "Yeah, this is your car." "What? I'm you?" "Yeah, I'm you, and you are me." "What? No way. What do I do for work?" Well, you've taken all the things that you've walked through. And I'm you, and you are me. Abundance is being in your path. The thing you don't want to do, you don't want to see the person you've always known yourself to be. The evolution that we're all on, taking all of these things we've walked through, healing from it, turning it outward, and this is when it really starts to become full circle. This is the evolution that I believe we're all on as entrepreneurs, as conscious entrepreneurs who are really, really doing the work, creating a life of abundance. Thank you, guys.